And welcome back to the COVID Reboot series brought to you by the Cape Town Fashion Council. I'm your host, Colin Donsko. Now, as the world faces an economic uproar, we're zooming in on what it takes to move the global and the local fashion economy forward. Today, we're zooming in on the state of the economy and its impact on the fashion SMME sector. We're here with economist, corporate executive, and author Chinwe Egwim. Ms. Egwim, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chinwe. So on this episode or on the series, we are talking to industry experts and leaders to zoom in on the state of the economy and, more importantly, help the economy move forward. But first and foremost, let's talk about your role as an economist.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for that. So there's a lot of trend analysis, market research, and of course, economic projections that take place with my role as an economist. I currently have over 500 published economic notes, primarily geared towards financial development and macroeconomics. Now, these reports cover fiscal profile, monetary policies, FX dynamics, interest rate movements, trade, GDP growth trends, reserves, inflation, sectoral trends, amongst others. And yeah, my role as an economist really supports management, senior government officials, and captains of industries with decision making.
Now, in light of the global crisis we're seeing, we obviously want to zoom in on its impact or its effects on the economy. But let's briefly discuss the current economic landscape. So, 2020 in review.
Wow. Okay. So the COVID-19 pandemic has had a more negative impact on activity in the first half of 2020. So January all the way to 2020, and the recovery is projected to be more gradual than previously anticipated. Now, the baseline projection rests on key assumptions about the fallout from the pandemic. For economies struggling to control infection rates, longer lockdown periods will result in additional toll on global economic activity. I also have to talk consumption growth because consumption growth has declined for most economies, reflecting the larger than anticipated disruption to domestic activity. Now, the general projection of weaker private consumption reflects a combination of adverse aggregate demand shock from social distancing and as well as a rise in precautionary savings. So a lot of people are tilting towards saving and investment and invest right now. Now, in addition, investment is expected to be subdued as businesses funds defer capital expenditures amid high uncertainty. So policy support that has been going on across countries. You've seen developed economies that a lot of fiscal injections that's pumping money into the system to try and support or combat the headwinds from the COVID-19 pandemic has been happening. So these policy supports partially offset the deterioration in private or private domestic demand, but still pockets are squeezed, pockets are pinched, and so demand has been disturbingly soft over this period. Yeah, that's
absolutely, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is how was this was affecting trade in Africa, which you touched on briefly in that comment. But also, how will the clothing and the textile industry recover from this, in your opinion, and based on your advice?
Okay, so there are global value chain disruptions.
Yeah,
as I've mentioned, it's interesting. World Trade Organization has projected a decline in world trade of 13% to 32%, and that's really steep for 2020. The impacts of COVID-19 highlights the long-standing underutilization of the regional market by African countries. Now, for a handful of African countries, commodity price volatilities continue to dictate the direction of economic projections. But going to your question, with the ongoing pandemic, we have come to the realization that fashion is a secondary need as opposed to a necessity like food or medical care. And the post-COVID-19 customer is likely to be more logical as opposed to an emotional buyer. Some factors that affect shopping behavior among fashion shoppers are things like brand reputation, personalization possibilities, and brand value. So for within this industry, positioning is incredibly important now for businesses.
Yes.
For brands to stand out, post COVID-19, they have to focus on storytelling around the benefits, the purpose, values, experience, and authenticity. Because the thing is, now consumers have competing priorities, or they always did. It's worse now. So you need to know how to position yourself to stay on top of your consumer or your client's spending priority list.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of talk around brands learning how to communicate their brand or their message, or promoting themselves as a specialized either service or niche. So thank you for touching on that. We're hearing a lot of talk around this. But another big point of discussion, especially here in South Africa, is that of supporting local. We're saying support local manufacturing, support local, a product. But in light of that, what? Let's talk about the future of this new economy, and then also what is the role of society in rebuilding the economy?
Okay, so for the future of the new economy, the twin forces of globalization and technology transforming our economies, right? Workplaces as well as teaching and learning methods are being transformed. If anything, this ongoing pandemic has forced many businesses to embrace digitization. And it has heavy dependence on internet services. Connectivity is now a core requirement to boost productivity. Something worth is that following the transition to remote work systems on the back of lockdowns that countries, it is largely expected that businesses will incorporate more remote working options for their employees and review their requirements at the time of their lease renewals, both in the short term and post-COVID. So essentially, office space requirements are likely to shrink to manage costs, right? Now, additionally, the future of the labor markets relies on connection. Leadership, transition, and resilience are important factors. So staying relevant in this economy is the key component to success. You must learn to take action now by identifying the skills you need to compete in the marketplace over the next 5 to 10 years. So as a business owner in the fashion industry, you need to start looking or trying to project or getting professionals that can do that for you so that you're building enough stamina to be able to compete on a sustainable level.
Absolutely.
So to be ready for the opportunities and challenges in this new economy, it's important that you as a business, you analyze your core values, you learn to think critically and constructively. Do this by investing in your own learning and personal development to create opportunities for yourself. And that's as an entrepreneur. If you have people working for you, if it's possible, you invest in equipping them with enough knowledge to help you drive your vision. And of course, I understand that we're all managing costs now, but there are also a lot of free learning tools out there. As I said, the pandemic has forced all of us to depend on the internet. And so you find that they're free or even just cost-effective learning tools, applications that you should encourage your employees, your staff to please get involved in and equip themselves so that they can be more valuable assets to you to push your business forward during the pandemic and even after the pandemic. It should be the new normal.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned new normal, and also you mentioned cutting cost, which is it's a big responsibility and also challenge for SME business owners. So we're saying you need to go lean, you need to cut cost so that you can obviously streamline your process. Businesses are being restructured, but in the same breath, we're saying we need to increase and improve local production and support local production. So in your opinion, how can we shape the future of manufacturing and production here in the country?
Well, manufacturing is one of my best sectors to talk about.
Okay.
But it really hits by the pandemic. Factory closures, particularly in China, led to supply chain disruptions, which have affected manufacturing plants across the continent. I can use an example of my country. Sourcing imported inputs has been a challenge due to the lockdowns and travel restrictions and just logistics as a whole. The results, as I said, have been raw material shortages, increased costs of inputs, and reduced orders. So increased cost of inputs, that results in putting that cost on consumers, and at the same time you're battling with soft demand because you're not getting enough demand. And so the little demand you're getting, it's like, why do I impose all the cost on this consumer? So it's like a double whammy in a sense.
Absolutely.
But in my opinion, government collaboration with the private sector need to find ways to address their respective structural deficits. For some African countries, power shortages remain a pain point for manufacturers. Logistics, dilapidated roads, and rail networks make it difficult to transport both production inputs and also even finished products. I'll give an example with West Africa, with Nigeria. For agro processing, which is the manufacturing bit of agriculture, you have farmers, harvest products in the northern Nigeria, and then they struggle to send it all the way down to the markets in southern Nigeria. And due to all that frustration, you get losses. You get products being lost.
Yeah.
You get products increasing, and you see it feeding into food inflation as well. So structural deficits need to be addressed. There's also the issue of consumption patterns, which can be epileptic, hence resulting in softer demand for produced goods. So I think some of these issues that I have mentioned should help with reshaping the manufacturing sector. And really, once each country or any country is able to attain that industrial takeoff with the manufacturing sector, it would help the economy. Now, South Africa has, of course, done way better than other African countries. So South Africa is an example, is an example for other African countries to follow or try to replicate. But of course, there's still, even at that, because I also understand that the economy is struggling with regards to what's going on the back of COVID. Even at that, they still have a lot of room for improvement. You mentioned restructuring in your earlier comment. Let's zoom in on that for a second. How can businesses or how can a business increase or improve its ability to drive economic growth post lockdown? Because we're all talking about restructuring businesses, but I want to zoom in on improving their ability to drive economic growth post lockdown. What is your advice there? Okay, well, the successful exploitation of new ideas is crucial to a business able to improve its processes. So bringing new and improved products and services to market, increasing its efficiency, and most importantly, improving its profitability. Now, pivot has become a buzzword during this period. For businesses that can do this to stay afloat, partnerships and collaborations would make such transitions easier. Now, tying that I've said to economic growth post COVID-19, SMEs are the engine of every economy. And so if they're able to first survive and then thrive during and after this, by extension, they would be positively impacting overall economic output. So that's my take on partnerships from and their ability to drive economic growth.
100%.
Without SMEs, I don't think we can function, because
absolutely,
your SMEs are providing employment for your citizens.
Absolutely. And that, I guess, that's the insight we wanted, just to help the industry navigate or migrate into the future. But with that said, let's talk about value. There's a lot of focus on how to survive this time and obviously get out of the economic crisis that we're in. But we also want to start talking about the future. How do we create value, or how do we create new value in the industry?
Okay, so resilience boosting reforms are required, and they include investment in capital. The human capital is important to build a workforce with the right skills for high productivity sectors and bridging the infrastructure deficit to advance Africa's industrial development. Promoting economic diversification will help countries adapt to an increasingly volatile global economy and better shield economies from future shocks, like what we're experiencing now. So I hope there's saying that has cropped up from the pandemic is make good use of the pandemic. So I hope that governments, those in authority, are really sitting down and internally strategizing how to mitigate against these kind of shocks in future. So I hope we're all able to make good use of this opportunity health crisis.
Absolutely.
Now, this will targeted policies that boost agricultural productivity and move labor from low productivity to high productivity sectors, as well as supporting competitive sectors such as agro-processing, digital technologies, or information and communication technology-based services have proved to be very critical during the pandemic. So to create value, challenges that will need to be addressed in order to achieve fast-growing and more resilient African economies include formalizing the informal sector, ensuring policy stability, good governance and transparency, and of course, stronger protections of property rights.
Let's zoom in on your predictions for a few seconds. I know what you are, one of the leading or the leaders in your trade, one of the leading economists, and one of the voices, obviously, that are looked up to when it comes to predicting and forecasting a future as well as trends. Now, your predictions: what will the next economic growth engines be?
Okay, well, visible growth engine right now is technology. Everyone can see it. Like, you don't have to be to be able to pinpoint that. But I'm also tempted to throw in transport and logistics because, wow, look at what the supply chain disruptions have shown us. So transport and logistics, like there's opportunity in that space, the continent. But however, if governments can pay attention to their structural deficits, the manufacturing sector can also feature on this list. And of course, I'm going to just briefly just mention the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Of course, there have been because of the pandemic, but they're deliberating and trying to put things in place post COVID. And businesses that position themselves for that free trade area agreement will benefit. So try to position yourself to be one of the chief beneficiaries of the free trade area that I'm sure will be implemented.
Absolutely. Now, Chinwe, a large part of the focus of this a series that the Cape Town Fashion Council is presenting is focusing on how to get businesses or business owners ready for the future. Let's talk about readiness for the future as an SMME in the country and also in the continent. What are some of the immediate steps that needs to be taken by these business owners?
Okay, so for businesses, sourcing imported inputs used for finished products becomes expensive now, and even after COVID, for like at least 18 months at least. So for those that import to sell, these items will become more expensive to procure. The transmission effect of the foreign exchange movements, which is happening across countries, will be passed on to consumers, so your everyday buyers. Hence, prices of goods are set to rise. So we need to think of how to be competitive, given that our products could increase, So staying ahead, companies need to become more innovative with product and service creation, or how to market existing products as consumers are set to have spending priorities, as I mentioned earlier. And that is given their pocket squeezes and pocket purse squeezes. Also, if you were already investing as a business, you should consider investing some of your profits or loose cash, if any, as opposed to just reinjecting all the money back into your business. Because I tend to see that, or I see that business owners do not really invest with their business, they invest as individuals. So maybe it's considering, thinking of like a mutual fund. Of course, you need an investment advisor before you do this, but setting aside a percentage of your profit and putting it into a mutual fund or a Eurobond fund, I don't know, like a good investment vehicle is something worth exploring now, as opposed to just investing as an individual. You should also treat your business as if it's you and start investing as well.
Absolutely. Now, Chinwe or Ms. Egwim, if I don't stop now, you and I will go on for ages. But before I conclude and let you go this afternoon, what is your advice to SME owners on ways to reboot? On ways to reboot their businesses? Just what advice do you give to small to medium enterprise owners on just ways to now restructure and then reboot their business for future?
Okay, so if as an SME, if you're not well structured, now is the time to get structured. So I'm referring to your accounting. If your accounting is wonky and legal matters are not well sorted, please structure now so that you can compete effectively for opportunities, especially for funding opportunities. I know it can be cumbersome. I know it's tiring, document filling and all of that, but you need to take the pain that you can enjoy the gain. So please rope in experts that can assist you to just structure your business properly, because I find that a lot of SMEs are not well structured. We see them on social media, we see some of them in physical stores, but when we look at their books, there are a lot of gaps, a lot of issues. So please, I implore you to structure your business so that you can compete for opportunities, grants, equity investments, and so forth, so you can compete effectively. I would also advise taking these 3 steps: reduce debt, optimize business efficiency, and rethink your supply.
That's powerful. We're going to list those points as well, because I think that's very crucial right now. Now, before I let you go, what was one big lesson that this national and international crisis has taught you on a personal level? What has been one big lesson that you've learned from all of this?
On a personal level, that we can all actually pause and breathe, and just have a moment and just rearrange, structure yourself, your personal self, like rest more. Like, it was so fast paced. Like, we did not even have the time to rest, but the pandemic has forced us all to just pause and breathe. I think I saw something from the IMF. They called it the Great Reset, and I feel, and that's not just for economy, that's for individuals, that's for businesses. This is not a period for you to feel, sad, or obviously I know it's a sad situation, but
yes,
it will be good to make good use of this opportunity, just looking inwards at your business or your personal life, and just restructuring and reposition. Because listen, these are economic cycles, okay? They've happened. In 1987, we had a downturn, a global one. So basically, we're going to see an upward trend. So upsetting it during this downtime, you do not position yourself well enough to take advantage of that upward trend. So yeah, so that's why.
That's incredible.
My personal life has taught me to reset and just breathe, strategize, and position for the upward trend.
I love that. It's no doubt forced us to just stop for a moment and focus on what matters most. Now, it is economist, corporate executive, and author Chinwe Egwim joining us as our expert on today's show. We zoomed in on the state of the economy and its impact on fashion SMMEs in the country and in the African continent. Now, for more great interviews with industry experts and pioneers, continue to follow Cape Town Fashion Council. Hop on over to www.ctfcdigital.co.za as we continue to bring you advice, insight, and guidance on how to move the African economy forward. I'm your host, Colin Donsko, and I'll see you next time. For now, take care and God bless.